Good morning, Darga Kumar sir.
Madam, good morning, madam.
I will start at 11:15 exactly, sir.
Okay, madam. Right.
Sir, we'll introduce to you and then you can share your screen, sir.
Okay, madam. Right.
Yeah.
రీఛార్జ్ ఆప్షన్ పొందడం కోసం ఏదైనా కీ ప్రెస్ చేయండి. నమస్కార్. India has achieved 100 crore vaccinations.
Welcome back, everyone. Moving forward to our next session, we have our next keynote speaker, Dr. N. Darga Kumar sir, Head of the Civil Engineering Department, JNTUH College of Engineering, Manthani. Sir has begun his academic career as lecturer in civil engineering at Sri Venkateswara University College of Engineering, Tirupati. Sir has received his PhD degree in the field of geotechnical engineering from the Department of Ocean Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. He took foreign teaching assignment and served in abroad as Professor of Geotechnical Engineering and Professor of Civil Engineering at Adama Science and Technology University, Ethiopia, and Fiji National University, Fiji Islands. He has guided 6 PhD theses and 25 master's theses, and also published about 90 articles in journals and conference proceedings. He has received the Best Teacher Award from the Adama Science and Technology University, Ethiopia, for his contributions in teaching and development of postgraduate program in geotechnical engineering. He has delivered about 80 expert, guest invited, and keynote lectures in the field of geotechnical engineering and civil engineering to the students and practicing engineers. He has served as chair postgraduate geotechnical engineering program leader for BE Civil Engineering Honors Program, head of school, head of the department, additional controller of examinations, hostel warden, and officer in charge of examinations. He has carried out collaborative research activities sponsored by TechIP, DST, and universities where he has served. He has visited abroad on teaching assignment, also as geotechnical engineer, and presented research papers in conferences in countries like Switzerland, Italy, USA, Fiji, Ethiopia, Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, France, and New Zealand. A very warm welcome, sir. We are very privileged to have you here on this day with us. I now request Dr. N. Darga Kumar, sir, to kindly proceed with his session.
Thank you, Ms. Manisha.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Right. So very good morning to everyone. So I thank the organizers for having given me the opportunity to deliver the lecture on self-directed learning and project-based learning and its importance in engineering education. Madam, am I audible, madam?
Yes, sir.
Right. Thank you. And so most of the participants are from various engineering colleges, having a background in science and engineering. Also, some of them are from humanities and social sciences. So this is very important nowadays as far the technology is concerned. Uh, the self-directed learning kind of education, as well as the project-based learning or problem-based learning, is very essential nowadays as far the engineering education is concerned. So the presentation, it goes like the introduction, engineering curriculum, self-directed learning, project-based learning, lifelong learning, evaluation system, and capstone project and conclusion. As we know very well that nowadays, wherever we go, everybody is talking about globalization. So in the process, the technology enhancement, technology development also is parallelly taking place. And further to see the comforts, the technology innovation is very essential nowadays. And still we are facing a lot of issues with respect to the technology is concerned. So there is a need to go for some more innovations and in every field of engineering. So for that, to have more innovations in engineering, so the education in technology development is very important. So in that process, we have to switch out from conventional education system to the, as for the present trends are concerned, 21st century, the skills are concerned. With respect to that, we had to train the engineering graduates. So as we see wherever in every engineering branch, there are so many applications, technology innovations are happening. And so to capture the needs of, to cater the needs of present day society comfort is concerned. So all these the engineering projects, not only nowadays, not conventional. So in every branch of engineering, the one-to-one, the help, that is very important to be taken into consideration so as to make a particular project. So earlier, good olden days, the civil engineer in the sense, the civil engineering graduate is to concentrate only on civil engineering related projects. Nowadays, it's not like that. The technology development and the innovations point of view, the more interdisciplinary kind of technology has come into picture. So with regard to that, the project-based learning and the self-directed learning kind of informations are very important to be taught to the students so that they can involve in groups and teams so that they can make out a project which will have more all kinds of interdisciplinary research activities. So good olden days manual calculations we used to do, and now there are the advanced technologies. So everywhere we are using the computer-based problem-solving methods, so that even sensing of some materials, we are utilizing some sort of sensors and sensing computational methods. That is the development nowadays. Further, these particular fields are to be further improved so that the student community, the technologies are very essential to take care of further heights of this particular interdisciplinary research. So for that, the innovations are very important. This is just like the Internet of Things, like how the civil engineer, the role, if you do consider in this, the civil engineer alone cannot do all the things. Like for the smart city point of view, there are many engineering graduates or the engineering disciplines like civil, mechanical, electronics, computers, and electrical, with the collaboration of all. So this kind of technology enhancement can be possible. So like these nowadays we are talking about the smart city and the smart city solutions, mainly the things that the components which are required are public address system, the fiber network, and smart lighting, city surveillance, and environment sensors, and the emergency call box and the city apps, and then the smart transport, kiosk, and solid waste management, smart parking, and city Wi-Fi, intelligent traffic. These are the various systems that are required to be provided for the typical smart city point of view. And then in that, so every engineering discipline is very much involved to develop this kind of information and technology. And so that is the task nowadays. So you see here, there are like nowadays it is required to deal with like air pollution control, fire detection also is another aspect, and the old age care and offspring care, sportsman care, and structural care, and then the smartphone detection, perimeter access control, radiation levels, and then the electromagnetic level, traffic congestion, the smart road and the smart lighting, intelligent shopping, noise urban maps, kind of many things are there in a particular city. All these are the developments that took place in the recent past. So there is further to the maintenance point of view and further to have better solutions. So we need to have innovations in the engineering and science and technology. So these are the some of the things that which are already evolved, and still refinement is being there for, and it goes for so many further years. And existing point of view, the parking and connectivity is very low, and the lack of information properly, and the street lighting is not that appropriate, and the lack of surveillance and the traffic congestion kind of things are existing in most of the cities. And there's a water problem also. And to overcome all these difficulties, the smart cities have been evolved, and in that process, so there is a like a smart parking, how to maintain it, and the Wi-Fi connections, how to provide it, and the citizen app supposed to be provided, and the smart lighting, and the smart energy, and command control center. From this, all the things can be monitored, and still a lot of technology enhancement and development is required in this particular field. So to cater the needs of present technology demands, so we have to produce the graduates in a way that they should have proper professionalism, social responsibility, problem-solving nature, and communication, information literacy, and a global perspective. So all these things are the one has to pick up. So then he or she, the graduate engineer, can do better for the society by maintaining the professionalism which he had learned in the university or college. And they should understand the social responsibility kind of things and the ethics, so that he can manage the things in society. And the engineer who goes out should have a good knowledge about how to solve the problems, and by using mathematical or computational kind of knowledge is very much required. And better communication as an engineer is very important to be provided, so that he can communicate and make the document, and so that his language can be easily understood, and accordingly the progress or growth in infrastructure development can be possible. Then the information literacy also is very essential to be taught to the student, and the global perspective, one should have a global perspective that what is happening around the world. So that kind of the attribute knowledge is required to be provided to the graduate students. Then the supportive knowledge for the project-based learning is concerned. The project-based learning activities, if you do consider as a central activity, so to that we need to have basic sciences and engineering fundamentals, and the discipline knowledge, and the specialization, and the systems design and professional development. So the project-based learning evolves around these three: basic sciences and engineering fundamentals, and discipline, knowledge, and specialization, and the systems design and professional development. So that the ones with these three components, the student or the graduate equipped, then he could do better in the project-based learning activities. In turn, he would be the asset for the society as an engineer. So like there are the engineering working knowledge for profile for B honors engineering graduate is like 8 levels. It should have working knowledge, systematic theory-based understanding. Then working knowledge 2 is the conceptual-based mathematics and numerical analysis, statistics and formal aspects of computer and information science. And the working knowledge 3, the student has to equip a systematic theory-based formulation of engineering fundamentals required in engineering discipline. And then the working knowledge 4 is entirely deals with engineering specialist knowledge that provides theoretical frameworks and bodies of knowledge in engineering discipline. The working knowledge 5 the student should equip is the knowledge that supports engineering design in the engineering discipline. And the working knowledge 6 is the knowledge of engineering practice like technology. And then the working knowledge 7 is the comprehension of the role of engineering in society and identified issues in engineering practice. The working knowledge 8 deals with the engagement with the selected knowledge in the research literature of engineering discipline like lifelong learning. So accordingly, there are 12 attributes are made in the engineering curriculum so that the student who goes out from the institute can have the target skills of 21st century. So accordingly, the curriculum has been evolved in the engineering education based on these 12 attributes. The student, the first attribute is that the engineering knowledge, and then the attribute 2 is the problem analysis kind of knowledge is required to be imparted to the student. And then the design, development, solutions kind of knowledge also is required to be provided. And the investigation kind of knowledge also the student has to get. And the modern tool usage is very important thing nowadays, is part of lifelong learning. And then I should create and select and apply appropriate techniques in every field of engineering. Nowadays, if you talk about the computer science, everybody is talking about Python and R programming kind of things. In civil engineering, if you talk about how to use the modern tools like Total Station and AutoCAD, StatFlow, ETABS kind of things. In mechanical engineering, CAD/CAM related, up-to-date information like how to make use of them, the patented tools. That kind of knowledge is very important to be imparted to the student. Then the engineer and society knowledge is very important. Otherwise, the graduate who goes out cannot perform well in the society because he should understand the safety, health, and the legal and the cultural issues of a particular region where he works. So for the engineer, the society knowledge is very essential for the engineering graduate. And then the graduate who goes out should equip with the environment and sustainability concepts, and you should be aware of environment and protection of environment and how to utilize the materials locally available so that we can avoid as much as possible the pollution kind of things in the environment. So that kind of knowledge is required to be imparted, environment and sustainability. And then the ethics also is required to be taught to the student so that with the ethics, he can behave properly in the organization and the workplace and wherever he goes so that he can sustain well as an engineer and he can concentrate positively on the tasks that are given to him. So individual work and teamwork, like the student should understand how to work individually and also how to cope up with the team as a team worker. So kind of knowledge also has to get it. So we have to put him on individual projects or on teamwork related projects so that that kind of knowledge the student can acquire before he goes out from the college. Then as for the attribute 10 is that nothing but the communication. So the communication is very important. Though we have extraordinary skills relevant to engineering and design and investigation kind of things, but if those things are not properly communicated or not properly written on the paper, So the whatever the knowledge that it cannot be expressed appropriately, so that way the things cannot move forward. So for that, the communication is very essential parameter, so that every student has to get equipped with good spoken English and good written skills, so that he can transfer the engineering knowledge very effectively to the community and society and the other higher authorities. So that is very important parameter. And the next, the attribute 11 is nothing but the project management and finance kind of knowledge is very important. The student who goes out from the college should equip with the knowledge related to project management and the also how to manage the finance. So without this, then the things cannot be placed in properly. So to have such a the good approach and the completion task about the project and kind of things, and to deliver the product effectively, and one should have the skills related to project management and finance related aspects. Then the last attribute is that the lifelong learning. So this lifelong learning is nothing but recognize the need for and have the preparation and ability to engage in independent and lifelong learning. So the student should be given an exposure in a way that he should able to take up further research activities, further learning activities to meet the contemporary requirements of that particular era, so that the lifelong learning concepts are very much required to be imparted at the graduate level, so that he can further, whenever necessary, the required knowledge levels can be acquired through by attending courses, by learning on his own, or by doing practice kind of things. The lifelong learning can be easily he or she can pick it up. So as for the 21st century skills recognized, lifelong learning is concerned, that is the 21st century skills like K-SAVE, that is the knowledge, the thinking knowledge, the skills, ways of working, and the attitudes like use of tools, modern tools, and the values and ethics. So these are the 21st century skills. These are very, every organization, wherever we see the graduates, if they are equipped with this kind of attributes, then the graduate can get the job sources well. So the 4 sets of skills were recognized as essential for adjustments to the effect of technology on lifelong learning and work is concerned. The skills were identified that the ways of thinking is very important, the ways of working individually in the group, and use the modern tools for working, and living in the world that had emerged as a result of technology. Like the living in the world is nothing but it should fit for the society, and it should live with the society, so that they can understand easily. So these are the 4 the skills that are recognized as for the 21st century skills are concerned. Ways of thinking, one should equip with the ways of the thinking nature, and the working kind of nature also has to adjust, and the use of modern tools, and the living in the world, like the ethics and the professionalism kind of things are very, values are very important. It's like ways of thinking includes the creativity and innovation, critical thinking, problem solving, and learning to learn, and development of metacognition. So these are the ways, the thinking kind of things. The ways of working involves communication and collaboration and teamwork. These are very important things the graduate has to pick up during his course of time at college. The tools for working involves he has to equip with information and ICT literacy, so that he can do well not only on manual kind of working conditions, we should be able to use the information technology, ICT literacy, so that they can do the work well. So then the living in the real world covers the changing emphasis on local and global situation. One should understand the regional, local, and the internationally, what are the issues happening and what kind of circumstances are happening. And so that way the globe, nowadays the globe is a small village. You should have a lot of information about getting into various kinds of countries and their working conditions and how to go there and work there, kind of the kind of information should be required. And aspects of life and career development is very important. And also the personal and social responsibility kind of the knowledge also is very important, to live in the realistic world. The teaching approaches that support lifelong learning and 21st century skills required for engineering graduates is that the teaching approaches to support the lifelong learning and 21st century skills are concerned. Problem-based learning is the one. There are a total six support systems for lifelong learning. The first one is problem-based learning, and is almost like project-based learning kind of thing. It is pedagogy in which students learn by solving real-world open-ended problems. It's like the teacher has to give a certain task in a way that everything should not be like a spoon feeding, but should inform to the students in a way that the student can search for it and identify it and can finally come up with a solution. So such a kind of thing that we have to inculcate to the student. And the project-based learning is an instructional learner-centered approach. The project-based learning or problem-based learning empowers learners to conduct his own research, integrate theory and practice, and apply knowledge and skills to develop a viable solution to a defined problem. So these are the 21st century skills. So by practicing this problem-based learning, then the student can conduct his research, integrate the theory and the practice, and apply the knowledge and the skills. So that way, this particular kind of knowledge, problem-based learning, can impart the skills which are required as per the 21st century. Then the second one is, which supports the lifelong learning, is that the flipped classroom is nothing but it represents a pedagogical model in which the typical lecture and homework elements of a course are reversed. So what in this the thing is done, the short video lectures are viewed by the students at home before start of the lecture, before the class session, while in class time is devoted to exercises, projects, or discussions. So like the teacher will inform to the student in a way that so tomorrow the so-and-so task is going to be discussed. Then accordingly, the student will be going through that particular the system through short videos and all. And then they'll come to the classroom and instead listening from the teacher, they will start doing exercises and projects, and they start discussions with the teachers. Just a minute. So sorry, and this is the flipped classroom. This is a very kind of concept, so that with this kind of mode of system, so the flipped class has an important role to develop 21st century skills. It promotes independent learning, critical thinking, collaboration, digital literacy, digital citizenship, creativity, and social skills also. So that is the thing, like flipped classroom concept also will support the lifelong learning. And then the third one is the serious games. These are games that do not have entertainment, enjoyment, or fun as their primary purpose. So the games which are not meant for entertainment, but the serious games have an explicit and carefully thought out educational purpose and are not intended to be played primarily for amusement. The serious games have key role to develop the skills needed in the 21st century. There, critical thinking will be provided, and group communication also will be learned, and the student will participate in effectively in the debates and also can make a decision. Like so, these kind of skills can be imparted with these serious games participation kind of teaching modes. And then the fourth one is that the self-directed learning, SDL. It describes a process in which individuals take the initiative with or without the help of others. Self-directed learning. So self, the beginning, the word itself is the self. So it describes a process in which individuals take the initiative without or with the help of others in diagnosing their learning needs, what to be learned, formulating learning goals, what are the things to be learned, so that what kind of formulation can be done. So identifying human and material resources for learning. So like what kind of support is required and what kind of material is required and resources are required, and choosing and implementing appropriate learning strategies and evaluating learning outcomes. These kind of things the student can be learned by practicing the self-directed learning kind of teaching approach. So the self-directed learning promotes creativity and innovation, which are 21st century skills. It changes teaching and learning process in order to prepare our students to be successful in their future. Like nowadays, so always we are keeping the students in the classroom, and always we are teaching the theory and whatever that it is there in the curriculum, the numerical examples. But and immediately the mid examinations are happening, we are not in a position to support them in the sense like self-directed learning kind of information we are not providing them. Always within the four walls, we are teaching the point to point the concepts, but we are not giving them exercises to think individually and as a group, and we are not providing them certain guidelines also. So all these things are the drawbacks, and but to overcome that and to see that the student should learn on his own and search on his own and identify on his own, and to choose to solve the problem and to make the strategies and to evaluate his own product, and kind of knowledge is very important that it can be imparted through self-directed learning, and by giving them suitable projects and assignments, and just we have to inform them what about the sea level rise, what are the consequences. Just if you give the title, then they should go and make out the things which are required and present it in such a way. We have to train the students. The fifth one is that the teaching approach, computer supported collaborative learning, CSCL. It encourages students to see situations from different perspectives, creates an environment where they can practice and provides a satisfactory learning experience. We know nowadays everybody is very well equipped with the computer background and the Zoom and WebEx and Microsoft Teams and kind of things. A lot of platforms have come, and everybody is nowadays using the PowerPoint presentation and preparation of the presentations and drawing on their own and sketches and typing the things. So that way, the computer-supported collaborative learning, it encourages students to see situations from different perspectives, creates an environment where they can practice, and provides a satisfactory learning experience. The computer-supported collaborative learning, CSCL, examines how to use technology as a scaffolding tool to support collaboration and higher order thinking. Many studies are done on how CSCL fosters higher order thinking by focusing on argumentation such as drawing reasons to support idea, finding evidence, and drawing a valid conclusion. This kind of argumentation has been discussed, and they concluded that it is a very best teaching approach so that the student can learn, practice, and provides a satisfactory learning experience, and he can mold himself to prepare the things as per the environment is concerned. The last one is that the teaching approaches as per the lifelong learning is concerned. Personalized learning, right? Personalized learning, it can be achieved by using online learning systems and tools that support a student-centered learning. It can be achieved by using online learning system and tools that support a student-centered learning. These learning environments help students to acquire knowledge, but also to develop and demonstrate 21st century skills such as communication, collaboration, problem solving, and creativity by creating and sharing digital content. So that way, so the personalized learning also can cause, nowadays, most of the Corona time, most of the students, they have gone through this personalized learning. Whatever the material that the teachers send, the students have gone through extensively, and personally they learn the things, and that way they acquired the certain knowledge called communication, collaboration with the different firms, and problem solving on their own, and making a creativity and these kind of things with the creating and sharing digital content kind of knowledge has been acquired. So those things are the skills required for the 21st century engineering graduate skills are concerned. Then as for the topic self-directed learning, it allows students to choose based on their personal interests and strengths. The self-directed learning, it allows the students to choose based on their personal interests and strengths so that they can take up the project, or they can do assignment. They can think individually, they can collaborate with others and come up with the teamwork. So that way the self-directed learning provides certain skills. They will learn how to search, how to collaborate, how to solve, how to think, how to create, and how to foster it kind of knowledge can be attained. So self-directed learning, no matter how good teaching may be, each student must take the responsibility for his own education. Though the teacher is teaching well, but the student also has to take part his own responsibility for his own education point of view. So that is the self-directed learning. So always is not the teacher. We cannot blame the teacher. The student also has to be a part of it in the learning process. So it has to take a lot of self-directed learning hours at home, or in the library, or in the laboratory, or in the industry. So wherever possibility is available, then the student has to approach everyone, and finally he has to understand the realistic picture of that particular concept. So the teacher can give the little bit knowledge in the classroom, and the responsibility of the student as for the self-directed learning is concerned, he has to approach the people. He has to identify the things where they can be available. He has to approach the people, and he has to go to the library. He has to go to the laboratory, and he has to go to the industry. So like that. So it makes them to communicate, to approach, and to move sociably, and kind of all the knowledge can be obtained. So that way the self-directed learning is very important teaching approach. The self-directed learning is a general term for an approach rather than a scientific medium or method, specific medium or method. The examples of self-directed learning, like problem-based learning, or project-based learning, or peer tutoring method. So anything that we can explain. So in that, so these are the various approaches. Like the self-directed learning is a self-activity as the basic principle of learning is concerned. An individual can learn only through his or her reactions to situations. It's not every time the student has to react for the situations, and based on that, then they can learn certain things by practicing it, they can learn. So no learning happens if there is no self-activity. That's very important. Self-directed learning is the process of learning in which learner assumes primary responsibility for planning, implementing, and evaluating a learning project. The learner assumes primary responsibility for planning, implementing, and evaluating learning projects. The learner chooses what to learn and how to learn, decides when to continue and when to stop it. Like, so the learner will choose, that is his choice, what to learn and how to learn. He decides when to continue and when to end the project. The self-directed learning is a process in which individuals take the initiative with or without the help of others. With or without the help of others, they take up the individual activity. In that, diagnose their learning goals, identify resources for learning, select and implement learning strategies, and evaluate learning outcomes. Like, they will start slowly and do it little by little, and then evaluate subsequently, and that way the things can be learned. So at the end, complete evaluation can be over. The self-directed learning has three components, like ownership of learning, extension of own learning, and management and monitoring of own learning. So these are the like. So as for the 21st century learning is concerned, the fundamental knowledge is required, is like a digital ICT literacy. Core content knowledge is required. Cross-disciplinary knowledge, interdisciplinary knowledge also is required as per the fundamental knowledge. Then the humanistic knowledge is like value and ethics. Life, job skills knowledge is required. Ethical, emotional awareness is required. And cultural competence also should be known to the student. The meta knowledge to act is the extra knowledge, that creativity and innovation, problem solving and critical thinking, communication and collaboration kind of things are required to be provided to the students. There are 4 steps in the self-directed learning. Dependent, stage 1. Interested, stage 2. In the stage 3, the student will involve. In stage 4, he will achieve the self-directed learning, or learner. He will become a self-directed learner. Initially, there is some dependency. He will approach the teachers and the friends and other wherever the mentors. Then little bit he will start showing interest. Then once he showed interest, then he involves. Once he involved, he will become a self-directed learner. These are the 4 stages. Then The stage self-directed learning model, in which different stages, stage 1 to 4, what is the student, what is the teacher role, is like stage 1, the student is dependent, but teacher is the authority to coach. In stage 2, the student will show interest, then the teacher will motivate and guide. In stage 3, the student will involve, whereas the teacher will facilitate. He will become a facilitator. Then in stage 4, the student will be a self-directed, okay? And teacher will become consultant or delegator. So that is the stage self-directed learning model. So the student, we have to understand the student capability, and accordingly we have to start giving him inputs, and so that we have to see that he will become a self-directed learner at the end. The structure of instruction that works in self-directed learning is that the teacher responsibility, the focus on lesson, I do it. Then guided instruction, we do it. Then the student responsibility, collaborative, you do it together. And independent, you do it alone. So this is the structure of instruction that works in self-directed learning. And what is the purpose of self-directed learning? To plan and participate in one's own learning activities, to develop the capacity of learning and thinking of learner, to develop the sense of independence by enhancing emancipatory learning, to develop the problem-solving approaches, to develop time management skills, to develop decision-making skills. So these are the various things, the skills which are required for the graduate. So that way, the self-directed learning will enhance all these skills or imparts the skills to the students. The process, self-directed learning, is a process. It involves a continual process of what? Self-motivation, self-management, self-monitoring, self-modification. Is a process. These 4 activities: self-motivation, management, monitoring, and modification. Is the self-motivation increases the likelihood that the students will pay attention to something, study and practice it, and try to learn it in a meaningful fashion. That is a self-motivation. Self-motivation increases the likelihood that they will seek help when they encounter. Motivation directs an individual toward certain goals and fulfillment their objectives. The second one is that the self-management establishes clear goals, thoroughly gathers information, persistently stays with a task, uses a systematic approach to problem solving or organizational planning and decision making, uses articulate, thoughtful communication, continuous process. So the self-management is very important to establish clear goals. The self-monitoring is also very important in the process of self-directed learning. The consideration of the ramifications of thoughts, plans, decisions, and actions. Metacognition, the process of consciously monitoring one's own thinking. Self-reflection, a process of reflecting on one's own thinking patterns, plans, decisions, and actions. And self-evaluation. So those are very important. Self-modification, it revises strategies and implies a great effort to maximize her effectiveness based on feedback. So the student has to seek feedback from his mentors, or teachers, or friends, and he should go with modification. The changes in one's behavior based on the data gathered during self-monitoring and on feedback received from others. So the behavioral change also is required. There's a self-modification. What are the steps involved in self-directed learning? Deciding what detailed knowledge and skill to learn, deciding the specific activities, methods, resources, or equipment for learning, deciding where to learn, setting specific deadlines or intermediate targets, deciding when to begin a learning episode, deciding the pace at which to proceed during a learning episode, estimating the current level of knowledge and skill and progress in gaining the desired knowledge and skill. So these are the various steps that one has to think about it before proceeding with the self-directed learning. And then the detecting any factor that has been backing or hindering the learning, one has to detect it and has to correct it. Obtaining the desired resources or equipments, has to plan. Preparing or adapting a room, yes, and saving or obtain the money necessary for the use of certain human or non-human resources. Finding time for the learning and taking certain steps to increase the motivation for learning. So these are the various steps the student has to consider in the process of self-directed learning. The skills needed to an effective self-directed learning. The students has to have goal-setting skills, processing skills, decision-making skills, self-awareness, content competence, and other cognitive skills. These are the skills needed to an effective self-directed learning. Goal-setting skills in STL, individual identifies the problem rather than developing a cognitive ability to engage in problem identification solving. The good observation skills and ability to determine what is important in their learning environment. There is a goal setting skills. The processing skills are nothing but observing the ability to see and understand, seeing and translating, the ability to translate visual information to notes and records, the reading aptitude, the ability to read, translate and compare written material, and listening also important, the ability to receive and process information and related it is existing information schemes. The decision-making skills in self-directed learning, the student has to have, this denotes the learner's thinking ability. Learner must develop the ability to identify, prioritize, select, validate, evaluate, and interpret information obtained through processing. So that kind of decision-making skills are required. Self-awareness skills. The successful self-directed learner has the ability to aware self. It enables the individuals to be aware of their learning processes, their weaknesses and strengths, to know their ability to use different in their environments, to know when, how, and when what is distracting in their environments, to know when they need assistance, and to have a realistic preparation of their ability to achieve learning goals. Those kind of self-awareness skills are important. Skills of content competence. Here, some personal observation indicates that people skilled in certain areas tend to emphasize those while avoiding topics and activities in areas in which they are less competent. One who knows the own language may learn another language based on first language. So content competence. So we had to start, one has to start from the known to further extra. The things which are unknown can be learned. The other cognitive skills in self-directed learning is sensory, memory, and elaboration kind of knowledge also important. The advantages of self-directed learning is like the self-directed learning allows learners to be more effective learners and social beings. It enhances the ability to think and learn. It promotes emancipatory learning process. Self-directed learners are curious and willing to try new things. They can view problems as challenges, desire change, and enjoy learning. Self-directed learners are motivated and persistent, independent, self-disciplined, self-confident, and goal-oriented. Self-directed learners demonstrate a greater awareness of their responsibility in making learning meaningful and monitoring themselves. Self-directed learners encourages students to develop Self-directed learning encourages students to develop their own rules and leadership patterns. These are the some advantages of going for self-directed learning. So it's very important in the education system. The advantages of self-directed learning are concerned. SDL is more deep and permanent. It helps develop time management skills. It helps to identify the requirements for problem-solving process. It increases self-esteem, helps in decision-making, and it promotes self-awareness. The certain drawbacks are available. Limitations of self-directed learning are that the research have proved that some adults are unable to engage in self-directed learning because they lack independence, confidence, or resources. Possible for frequent error, and sometimes it misguides the student how to learn. Self-directed learning needs to be combined with other learning methods for content to be fully learned. Self-directed learning is quite time-consuming. It lacks team spirit. There are certain selection criteria for self-directed learning is concerned. The learner should be enthusiastic. If enthusiasm is not there, we cannot do much. The materials should be available and appropriately placed. Guide and advisor should be available if needed. Learners should be physically and mentally healthy. Learners should be able to select the tools and methods that they use. The technologies that could be used to support the approach are largely dependent on the students. Working collaboratively with others, and this kind of environment is very important. If these things are missing out, the self-directed learning is a bit difficult to proceed. Now, the project-based learning. So in this, some observations are noticed. Project-based learning is the same as making something, hands-on learning, or doing an activity. You can notice here the project-based learning is like hands-on learning or doing an activity. For example, in any course or subject that you are teaching, so you can formulate a problem, you can make a project in that, you can give it to the student as a part of your subject. So that end of the semester, the student will come up with a report in your subject by making model and by solving it and by conducting experiment, and he will make the reports in your subject. So there is hands-on learning or doing an activity. And some universities, the laboratory is not separately dealt. It is a part of subject. So what the teacher will do, instead conducting every week experiments, initially he will give the demonstration about all the experimentation, and he will give a particular project kind of thing, so that the student has to go to the laboratory and has to conduct his own all the experimentation, finally has to give a report with the conclusions. That is the project-based learning. Project-based learning is not standards-based. It focuses on soft skills like critical thinking and collaboration, but doesn't teach enough content, knowledge, and academic skills. Project-based learning takes too much time project-based learning is only for older students at a higher level or fluent English speakers or those who don't have learning disabilities. The project-based learning is too hard to manage and or it would not fit with my teaching style. So like these were the some of the observations from various teachers being collected about the opinions like about the project-based learning. Is project-based learning a dynamic approach to teaching in which students explore real-world problems and challenges by doing or hands-on experience kind of things? Or rigorous projects are planned, managed, and assessed for students to learn key academic concepts, practice 21st century skills, collaboration, communication, and critical thinking, and create high quality, authentic products and presentations. So like the students, they used to do on their own some models and place them in the expo. They put, they put it in the exhibition. So kind of projects like, so hands-on, and they make it a realistic a prototype thing from the model. The project-based learning is a teaching method in which students gain knowledge and skills by working for an extended period of time to investigate and respond to an engaging and complex question, problem, or challenge. PBL is a student-centered pedagogy that involves a dynamic classroom approach in which students acquire a deeper knowledge through active exploration of real-world challenges and problems. Students learn about a subject by working for an extended period of time to investigate and respond to a complex question, challenge, or a problem. The project-based learning is a style of active learning and inquiry-based learning. Project-based learning contrasts with paper-based, rote memorization, or teacher-led instruction that simply presents established facts or portrays a smooth path to knowledge by instead posing questions, problems, or scenarios. As for the Thomas Markham, the project-based learning integrates knowing and doing. The project-based learning integrates knowing and doing. The students learn knowledge and elements of the core curriculum, but also apply what they know to solve authentic problems and produce results that matter. Project-based learning refocuses education on the student, not the curriculum. These cannot be taught out of a textbook, but must be activated through experience. The meaningful project-based learning should be like, it should be significant content, it should have significant content, and it also has to meet the 21st century skills. Like the significant content is concerned, is like in-depth inquiry. It should be like public audience involvement, and it should be like having some driving question so that you can have in-depth inquiry so that you can make a useful product. As for the 21st century skills are concerned, so the project-based learning will improve need to know skill, voice and choice skill, and revision and reflection kind of a skill. So that is the importance. If these things can be provided in a particular project-based learning, then it fulfills the meaning of it. The project-based learning emphasizes long-term interdisciplinary and student-centered learning activities. Students organize their own work and manage their own time in a project-based class. Project-based instruction differs from traditional inquiry by its emphasis. on students' collaborative or individual artifact construction to represent what is being learned. Project-based learning also gives students the opportunity to explore problems and challenges that have real-world applications, increasing the possibility of long-term retention of skills and concepts. The essentials of project-based learning is concerned. The key knowledge is important, understanding ability is important, and success skills also very important. Then the challenging problem or question is very important. So without that, the challenging problem or question, there's no meaning in doing project-based learning. The project is framed by a meaningful problem to solve or a question to answer at the appropriate level of challenge. Sustained inquiry, that the students engage in a rigorous extended process of asking questions, finding resources, and applying information. Then authenticity, the project features real world context, tasks and tools, quality standards or impact, or speaks to students' personal concerns, interests, and issues in their lives. All this authenticity is important. And the student voice and choice is that the students make some decisions about the project, including how they work and what they create. Reflection. The students and teachers reflect on learning, the effectiveness of their inquiry and project activities, the quality of student work, obstacles, and how to overcome them. Critique and revision also is a part of project-based learning. Students give, receive, and use feedback to improve their process and products. The public product, the students make their project work public by explaining, displaying, and or presenting it to people beyond the classroom. So some examples like driving questions and project ideas we can give as a teacher from your subject which you are teaching. Then, for example, can the earth sustain our growing population is a question, so that the student can use math and science and some standards and focus, and finally he will come up with some proposal reports. The other questions are like, how should we respond to pandemics? There's a question. Then as a teacher, as a mentor, if you put it, then the student will make out a report by asking questions, approaching people, and spending his time with the industry and many other people. So finally, after rigorous study, he will present the entire the information for this particular question. That is a project-based learning. Then how do matrices contribute to the fight against terrorism? This is also one of the problems. Like some examples of this, like you can find out more number of examples as per your subject is concerned, like mechanical, civil, computers, electronics, electrical, mining, instrumentation. So as you know well, what kind of question can be asked, and from for that, you can extract the things from the student in the process called project-based learning, so that the student will rigorously involve in it and will make a better report, a solid report at the end of your course or within a given stipulated period of time. And some more examples are that how do acts of courage benefit humanity, and how can we honor courage in our community, so that the students will be, how does technology affect the way we learn? This is another question. Like you can pose n number of questions to the students, so that give them the questions. So let them come up after searching, after approaching, after individual thinking or teamwork and hands-on experience, or doing a model, let them come up with some kind of reports. That is called project-based learning. The characteristics of project-based learning, it is organized around an open-ended driving question or challenge. Project-based learning creates a need to know essential content and skills. It requires inquiry to learn and or create something new. Project-based learning requires critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, and various forms of communication, often known as 21st century skills. It allows some degree of student voice and choice. Project-based learning incorporates feedback and revision. Project-based learning results in a publicly presented product or performance during exhibitions. The elements of project-based learning, the core idea of project-based learning is that real-world problems capture students' interest and provoke serious thinking so that the students acquire and apply new knowledge in a problem-solving context. So the project-based learning is cannot be implemented in the beginning stages of students. Once they come to third year or fourth year level, then project-based learning kind of tasks you can give it to the students. In the first year and second year, still they are in the process of learning basic engineering and basic sciences. So the project-based learning can be very effective if you could start giving questions from third year and fourth year. Then the teacher as facilitator works with students to frame questions, structure meaningful tasks, coach the knowledge development and social skills, and assess the students learning from experience. Typical projects present a problem to solve. What is the best way to reduce the pollution in the school? A simple question like, or a phenomenon to investigate what causes rain, all right? Like small questions, and based on the intensity of the subject which you are teaching, the respective questions can be posed to the students. The role of student in project-based learning is concerned. A student or students determine their projects, encouraged to take full responsibility for their learning. This makes project-based learning a constructivist learning method. Students work together, use technology to communicate actively with the teacher and pace others. The student makes choices on obtaining, displaying, or manipulating information. Every student has the opportunity to get involved either individually or as a group member. The student role is to ask questions, build knowledge, and determine real-world solution to the issue question presented. Students must collaborate to expand their skills and engage in focused communication. Think rationally to solve the problems. Project-based learning forces students to take ownership of their success. The role of instructor or facilitator, in project-based learning. As a facilitator, the instructor will be a facilitator. The instructor develop an atmosphere of shared responsibility while having the overall control of learning. Regulate the student success with the intermittent transitional goals to ensure student projects remain focused and students have a deep understanding of the concepts being investigated. The students are accountable to the goals through feedback and assessments. The ongoing assessments and feedback to ensure the student stays within the scope of the question and the core standards in the project. Evaluate the teacher, the instructor evaluates the finished product learning that it demonstrates. There are 8 features in project-based learning. The one It engages students in complex real-world issues. The second one, it requires the students to use inquiry, research, planning skills, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills as they complete the project. And it requires project-based learning. It requires students to learn and apply content-specific skills, standards, and knowledge. And the project-based learning provides opportunities for students to learn and practice interpersonal skills as they work in cooperative teams. It gives students practice using the array of skills needed for their adult lives and careers. It includes expectations regarding accomplishments, learning outcomes, incorporates a reflection activities that lead students to think critically about their experiences and to link those experiences to specific learning standards. The last one is that ends with a presentation or product that demonstrates learning and is assessed. The criteria could be decided upon by the students. Certain notes to be remembered in project-based learning. Some guidelines like start small. Project-based learning does not have to take months to complete. Start with the standards. Find one or two that would allow for in-depth inquiry or coverage. Plan ahead. Project-based learning cannot be effective by planning a day in advance. So planning is very important. Begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. So some end, some goal should be there. With that, we have to start the project. Work backwards to have a well-developed project ready for the classroom. Know the difference between project-based learning and projects. In project-based learning, the project itself is the learning and you are teaching throughout the project, not teaching and then doing the project. So in the project-based learning, you're not teaching much. So break out of the molds, approach other content teachers about the possibility of collaborating on project-based learning. Sometimes you are required to collaborate with other departments or other colleagues so that the problem which is of interdisciplinary nature can be solved. So that way the collaboration is very important. The advantages of project-based learning are that more important than learning content. Students need to learn to work in a community, thereby taking on social responsibilities. The most significant contributions of project-based learning have been in schools, in marginalized areas where when students take responsibility or ownership for their learning, the self-esteem increases. It also helps to create better work habits and attitudes towards learning. Although students do work in groups, they also become more independent because they are receiving little instruction from the teacher. So with project-based learning, students also learn skills that are essential in higher education. The students learn more than just finding answers. Project-based learning allows them to expand their minds and think beyond what they normally would. Students have to find answers to questions and combine them using critically thinking skills to come up with the answers. Technology allows the learners to search in more useful ways along with getting more rapid results. The limitations of project-based learning, that's unfocused and underdeveloped lessons can result in the wasting of precious class time. Lecture style instruction can convey the same knowledge in less class time. Instructors can be misled into thinking that as long as a student is engaged and doing, they are learning. If the project does not remain on task and content driven, the student will not be successful in learning the material. Complex projects need to be on track while attending to students' individual learning needs. A frequent criticism of project-based learning is that when students work in groups, some will sit back and let the others do all the work. Project-based learning may be inappropriate in mathematics, as mathematics is primarily skill-based at the elementary level. Not easy to measure success using standard measurement tools. In project-based learning, there is also a certain tendency for the creation of the final products of the project to become the driving force in classroom activity. So the concepts of lifelong learning, now is the lifelong learning, is that triple L is like lifelong learning is the ongoing, voluntary, and self-motivated pursuit of knowledge for either personal or professional reasons. Lifelong learning is important for an individual's competitiveness and employability. Lifelong learning enhances social inclusion, active citizenship, and personal development also. Why lifelong learning is important? Lifelong learning refers to the process of gaining knowledge and learning new skills throughout the life. Many people continue their education for personal development and fulfillment or satisfaction, while others see it as a significant step toward career advancements. So there's a lifelong learning is very important. If we become a lifelong learner, then we are the best mentor in the classroom. The term lifelong learning recognizes that learning is not confined to formal education and job training, but lifelong learning takes place throughout life and in a range of situations. So that's very important to be followed. The characteristics of a lifelong learner are that one has to read a lot, one has to attend courses, one has to seek new opportunities, one has to embrace the change, one has to be very curious to learn, one has to open to new perspectives, one has to set goals, and one has to love making progress. So these are the typical characteristics should be there for lifelong learner. Then that person can learn the things very effectively so that he can contribute better and be a better employee. Benefits of lifelong learning are concerned. It can help you succeed at your job. It can help your brain stay healthy. It can help you stay connected. It can help you stay fulfilled. It can help you be happier. And it is easier than ever to engage in lifelong learning. So it's a continuous process. Once you do follow it, you will enjoy it. The examples of lifelong learning includes internships and apprenticeships, vocational courses, teaching yourself a new language or new subjects, studying a new subject, learning to use new piece of technology or modern tool usages, playing a new game or sports, adding to your skill set during employment. How to practice lifelong learning? It's like you order the books on different topics you are interested in and read them. Plan day trips and take tours and go to the industrial visits, visit a local visits, a museum and other things, take a nature hike, allow spontaneity, budget for education and hobbies, surround yourself with other lifelong learners, listen to music from a variety of group. So the importance of lifelong learning for educators, lecturers, being a lifelong learner plays an important role in the educational process. It helps educators incorporate new tools and strategies into the learning process to boost their students' learning development. Educators who are lifelong learners are more successful. Like as a lecturer, how you realize lifelong learning? Keep encouraging lifelong learning habits in the classrooms by taking the following pathways. Like be a model of inspiration to the students, be speak the language often, or rethink the definition of failure or definition of success. Assume that everyone learns by doing. Teach positive self-talk to the students. Remember, learning doesn't stop often after college. So these kind of things that one the lecturer has to realize so that he can maintain best learning process in the classroom. The skill set and teaching process as for the 21st century, the teaching approaches, the project-based learning and flipped classroom, serious games, self-directed learning, computer supported collaborative learning, CSCL, and personal learning. These are the teaching approaches. And along the y-axis, critical thinking, decision making, problem solving, risk taking, creativity, communication, collaboration, digital literacy, and digital citizenship. These are the things are called the skill set as per the 21st century, and these skill sets are required to be imparted to the student community. So critical thinking is very much possible in all the approaches except personalized learning. Whereas the decision making is very much possible in case of serious games, decision making, and the problem solving. It is possible in problem-based learning or project-based learning, and serious games and personalized learning. Problem solving can be effective. Now, the risk taking can only be understood self-directed learning. The creativity can be understood or learned in the project-based learning, problem-based learning, and flipped classroom, and serious games, self-directed learning, and personalized learning. So, so this particular based on the questionnaire process and approaches, this particular table, the teaching approach and the skill set, which one is very suitable for which method of teaching approach is going to give a proper skill set that this particular table explains. So the digital literacy, except in project-based learning, in all other cases it is digital citizenship. So it is very effective in flipped classroom and computer supported collaborative learning. So I think so there are some more slides, but anyway, there are assessment principles, and the validation also is very important. So there are various assessment methods for a particular given project, how to assess. These are the different methods are available. And Bloom's taxonomy kind of information to be passed to the students so that they can be obtaining the skills. The feedback also is very important to correct themselves. The exam question papers, questions to be like these kind of questions should be there. Moderation also is very important. Once you prepare the question paper, somebody has to evaluate it so that effective conditions can be. The exams can be open book exams and closed book exams. And questions, short answer questions or essay questions, problem solving questions, oral examination, case studies, professional tasks, and this kind of exams one can conduct for the student benefit point of view. And work integrated learning also can be provided for the student, so that he will work and he will learn kind of things so that he can manage the things. So while evaluating the project-based learning, certain guidelines are required to be, or certain information is required to be given to the students, and these are the information. The capstone projects are also very important at the final year level. So various stages are there in the, these are like research projects, and the student has to utilize overall knowledge from the starting from first year to final year to participate in these capstone projects. These are like externally oriented projects, academic inquiry projects, practice-based consultancies, practice-oriented simulations, task-oriented simulations, and placements. The principles of design and principles of capstone design is like, these are the points. It integrates and extends prior knowledge. It is authentic. It is challenging and complex. It involves critical inquiry. It includes an element of celebration and dissemination. Various strategies of capstone project. Some of the critical success factors that we use in capstone project. So overall, this presentation, to meet the challenges, technology innovations are essential. Engineering graduates need to be equipped with lifelong learning skills. Absolutely, there is a huge necessity to develop engineering curriculum to impart 21st century skills to the graduate students. Thank you for your kind listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for this informative session. I now request our participants to kindly post your queries in the chat box. Or you can unmute yourself and ask the question directly. Participants are requested to kindly post your questions in the chat box. Sir, I think there are no more questions, sir. Shall we call it a day, sir?
Right, thank you very much. So I'll pass the presentation. I'll send the presentation so that it can be issued to the participants.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone. I request our participants that we shall now take a lunch break and we will resume our next session at 2 p.m. exactly. I request the participants to kindly join the session 10 minutes prior to the schedule, that is at 1:50 p.m. Thank you.